our planning person, Heather Stanek. And with that, if I could have a resolution to adopt the agenda, please.
Resolved, the agenda for the meeting be adopted as circulated with the noted additions. Communication for action, 5.1, Selkirk Biz. New other business, 6.5, enforcement vehicle and equipment. 6.6, Beaches of 59, highway sign. 6.7, offer to purchase lot 28 Sunset Bay. 6.8, offer to purchase lot 29 Sunset Bay. 6.9, burning ban.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Strang, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Any other additions or corrections or anything else for the agenda today? Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
Were we going to add in camera
For planning issue in camera?
Yes.
I believe we can, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing and seeing nothing, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And confirmation of the minutes. We have one set of minutes if we could have those looked after.
Resolved, the minutes of April 13th, 2021, regular meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Horbus, Councillor Spicer seconds. Any discussion, corrections, changes? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we do have a delegation this afternoon, and it is Mr. Derek Eno from Red River Planning, and we do have a memo that he had forwarded, but he is here to make a presentation. So if you just want to go ahead, Derek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's nice to be here and actually see people in person these days. It's a real novelty. Well, last week we actually got a call from some folks in the southern area of your municipality that the property at 677 Dunning Road, and I actually have an updated memo. Our GIS system was giving us a different property address. So it's actually 677 Dunning Road, unfortunately burnt down last week. And a friend of the family was going around to see what their options were for temporary accommodations while they try and rebuild and do all the necessary things for reestablishing their home sites. Typically, in most of these situations, your bylaw does allow for people to have a temporary home, whether that's a mobile or an RV or something like that, on the property when an instance like this takes place, whether it's from flooding or fire, where people are displaced. As well, your bylaw also allows for people to have a temporary home on the property while they're constructing a new home. However, this zone for this particular property does not allow that. It's called a temporary use in your zoning bylaw. And do you have the second page of my memo there?
GPAC's putting it up.
Oh, right there. Oh, perfect. So right there, you can see, I put down a list of all the zones in your zoning bylaw, and where temporary uses are listed. You can see every zone allows for it outright, with the exception of the hazard land zone, which is conditional, which kind of makes sense, you know, if you have hazard land. Maybe council should have a quick look at that first. But the GD zone does not list this as even a use to contemplate. Now, with that in mind, if they came to our office, we would not be allowed to issue them a temporary permit. And in my mind, this seems like it was an oversight when this new zone was put in. I can't see any rationale why you wouldn't have this in there. So in that case, we would have a couple of recommendations. One, we can take care of that through either an amendment or through the new zoning bylaw process. And two, we would ask council just to pass a resolution giving us a little leeway to issue these people a temporary permits for the time being. And foreseems that it would be a temporary permit. We can't see there being any real negative lasting impact on neighboring property owners. Once again, it would be temporary until a new house is put up. So that's all I have for you, Madam Mayor and Council, unless you have any questions for me.
Okay, any questions for Derek on this issue? Yeah, and the note that I made when I was looking at this yesterday, I said, is this something that was missed when the GD zone was created a few years ago? Because the GD zone hasn't been around all that long in that area. So I'm thinking that it was, as you said, an oversight when that zone was created.
Seems to be.
Yeah. So any questions from any members of council? Mr. CAO, did you have anything that you wanted to add or any questions for Mr. Eno?
No, Madam Mayor, I think Mr. Eno's explained it very well and has offered a valid solution for our residents who experienced a complete destruction of the house in that fire.
Go ahead, Councillor Horvis.
Is there a time limit on it, like a year or 2 years or 5 years? Like, it's not gonna drag on like that, right? Or
No, during the provision that allows a home during construction is for 12 months. But the provision that allows for a home from being displaced by fire or flood, there's no provision on that for time. I'm not sure why. I would probably guess that because people have to deal with insurance companies and whatnot, that usually can drag on for quite a long time.
maybe we put something in there with a 2-year limit or something?
Go ahead, Councillor Spicer, sorry.
Well, that was my question, like, when they take out their building permit, isn't there a time limit for substantial completion of a building permit?
There is no time limit for substantial completion on a building permit.
Maybe there should be.
If there is no progress on a building permit for any period of time, Red River Planning has the authority to cancel a permit.
Yes.
But as long as there's continued progress, sometimes people are building or constructing on a budget basis and they're slowly moving ahead. Normally in those, you normally don't have a temporary permit. This is a unique situation. I did talk to a representative of this property owner, and they have young children associated with this. They want to make sure that they can stay and not be displaced. And they're very motivated to replace this property, to replace this house as soon as possible. So I don't expect any of the major issues or that somebody will just automatically start living in a temporary structure. I think that they're really seriously looking at doing a full construction.
Thank you for that, Deepak. Go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
Perhaps we could just have something in there saying, the permit will be issued and give a time and saying, and upon review of completion, it will be looked at again. If they say, geez, we need 6 more months, okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at go ahead, Derek. I'm just looking at the resolution here and trying to see where we can fit something in, but go ahead, Derek.
For sure. The other thing is that maybe in the resolution you could have us just report back to council on the progress of it. That way, if something needs to be addressed, then that's fine. I'm hesitant in this day to recommend putting a time limit on this, merely because of what's happened with COVID as well as the economy. It's difficult to find a contractor these days. I wouldn't even know if these folks could actually find a contractor if they had building permits and plans ready to go today. Likewise with finding materials. What we're hearing from the industry is it is getting very difficult to secure materials and secure them at an affordable or reasonable cost. So with that in mind, just the way the economy and the building industry has been functioning over the last 12 months, it's different than if you were talking about the same situation in 2018. I would probably have no hesitation at that time to say 8 years is probably enough time for people to get their stuff together. I think even if they had everything together, there would be extenuating circumstances that might pose some problems for them.
Right. Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
Is there a timeline put on the other zones there that we have that?
Oh, no, I don't think there was.
Only, all the other zones have a time limit only associated with construction. So if your home was destroyed due to flood or fire, you can have something temporary while you get things together. There's no time limit. If you want to have temporary accommodations while you're building a home, there is a time limit of 12 months. So in this case, I would almost say that they could apply, or both scenarios would apply to them.
Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
I would agree with with Derek in regards to not putting a timeline, but maybe just reporting back to council. I know they have 4 young children, there's 2 dogs, and the place looks disastrous driving by. It's a pretty sad sight. And the neighbors around the area are helping them out.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Go
There's
ahead.
a picture on the screen that
Yes.
shows it.
Yeah, we have that in our packages, and it's pretty awful looking. It looks like it was pretty much leveled, so,
1 hour. So
1 hour.
And I think we were in council here when, and I think East Selkirk went to help.
Yes, we were here, that was a week or so ago, so. Okay, any more questions for Derek? Derek, I believe that from what council has said, we will be passing the resolution to give you authority to issue them a temporary permit. If you're gonna wait for a minute, maybe we can just proceed. I think we do have the draft resolution up on the screen, so I will ask our CEO to read that, and then we'll move forward from there.
Whereas the RM St. Clement's zoning bylaw number 5 of 2002 lists temporary uses in every use table zone except the GD general development zone, and where the omission of temporary uses in the GD development zone use table appears to be an error, and where the property located at 677 Dunning Road is zoned GD general development, and the owners would like to place temporary accommodations on the property while they rebuild their house destroyed by a fire. Therefore, be it resolved that the Red River Planning District is authorized to issue a temporary use permit for temporary accommodations to the owners of the property located at 677 Dunning Road.
So
Are you seconding that, Councillor Spicer? Okay, so moved by Councillor Bazarowicz, seconded by Councillor Spicer. Do we want to put something in there that they report back to us on the progress? Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
So to clarify, if planning feels that there isn't progress being made, they could cancel the temporary permit?
Correct.
Yes.
Go ahead, Councillor Bazarowicz.
question, Derek is here. They were asking me to, like, they've been having a hard time finding a trailer or a park model or whatever. And what they're, I said I'd talk to planning about, does it have to be CSA or can it be ULC or the rating?
The bylaw also allows for an RV. So long as it's been, it meets some level of safety standard, I would assume everything would be.
Okay.
It's pretty flexible for these situations.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. Now, my question was, are we going to add in another clause there regarding letting us know the progress of the replacement, or are we just going to leave it as is? Go ahead, you're the mover, so.
Yeah, well, just because I know them, I know what the situation is, I wouldn't worry about it, like, this is gonna be the fastest built house ever.
Any other comments or concerns?
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
say I feel fine with it. Planning doesn't see any progress on it. That it'll
Okay.
get pulled, but I don't think that's going to be the issue there.
Okay, I'm good with it also then,
Yeah,
so
the only thing that might hold them up is material. And they have no control.
no, but at the same turn, I think they're probably anxious to get going and
Oh,
get it
yeah.
done as soon as possible, so hopefully they won't run into those snags. So we do have a resolution on the floor. I have a mover, I have a seconder, and if there are no other questions or comments,
One more for,
can we do it after we
Sure.
take the vote? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Go ahead.
they, do you have a copy of the plans? They want to build the same house again.
Well, that is
So,
something that
plan-
they should be going to planning with.
Yes, and they have, was my question, have they located plans of planning it?
I don't believe they've asked for any plans. We've been working with,
Lionel,
The
Yeah,
neighbor?
yes, we live with Lionel, they're a friend of the family.
Right.
So he's been asking information. I was gonna talk to him today or tomorrow mornings.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for coming in with that information, Derek.
Great.
And now you have the goods, and if they need anything else from us, they know where to find us, so,
Thank you, council. I'll pass on the good news. I'm sure they'll appreciate it.
okay. Okay, you take care. Good to see you in person.
Take care.
Take
you,
care,
Derek.
Have a
Derek.
good day.
Thanks. Okay, so next on our agenda is communication for action, and we have one there, the Selkirk Biz. And we talked about this one a little bit, and I don't know if everybody saw this because it was added to the agenda, but there are the questions that they're going to be asking at the bottom there. It's going to be on May the 6th, and it is going to be virtual. So, I guess the only, it's okay, it's probably my phone is ringing from here, and it's probably the Connect.
Oh, yeah, so is mine.
I guess the only thing is some of these questions I'm going to have to sit down with Deepak and put some words of wisdom together for them. So, you know, I guess a long-term vision for the next 5 to 10 years, well, we're not even sure how long we're going to be in COVID to start with. So somebody else is ringing. I can hear it. So I don't know, do we need a resolution for this, for my attendance, or what are we looking for here, Deepak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have a resolution for attendance of yourself and any other councillors who may want to attend.
Okay. So if you want to bring that forward then, and I would just leave it as council.
Sure.
Thank you.
So resolved, just Mayor of Feeble-Corn and Council, or just Council?
No, Mayor Feeble-Corn and Council is fine.
Resolved, Mayor of Feeble-Corn and Council be authorized to attend the State of the Region Address virtual event on Thursday, May 6th, 2021.
And I will move it, please. Councillor Sutherland, second. Councillor Strang, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. What's that?
Enter the network security key.
Are you not on the agenda?
Yeah, I can't get in here. I don't know if I can get in. Is
Oh,
there a network security key?
It's probably just Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's for the Wi-Fi.
Hang on a second.
My phone just rang.
I got a week board meeting,
that day?
at 1 o'clock, and this
Yeah, but
is
this is not till the evening. I think it's at.
Nope, this is at 12 to 1.
12 to 1.
Oh, jeez.
That's okay.
See, that's how I read it. I thought it was at 6.
They're keeping it the same time. Remember they used to have lunch?
Yes,
We
they
all used
did.
to, yeah.
They did. Okay, I think Ken is looking for something, but I think we can go on to the
Yeah.
next one. It's Prairie Bylaw Enforcement Limited, and it's a list of the active officers. So, Mr. Administrator, can you please read that resolution for us?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Whereas an updated list of Prairie Bylaw officers dated April 21st, 2021 has been provided by Prairie Bylaw Enforcement Limited, and therefore be it resolved, the employees of Prairie Bylaw Enforcement Services listed below are appointed designated officers and bylaw enforcement officers for the enforcement of the municipality's bylaws. The Municipal Act, any other act the municipality is authorized to enforce. 2021 to 2022 list of bylaw enforcement officers, badge numbers, and the names have been provided. I don't think you need me to read the names. Madam
No,
Mayor.
that's fine, thank you. Okay, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Boulanger, second. Councillor Spicer, any questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. 6.2, Winnipeg River Advocate, and that was an email requesting support for the RM of Alexander's 75-year booklet. And we did have a copy of that. Mr. Administrator, did you want to comment on it at all?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, RM of Alexander is a partner in sharing our services of fire protective services between the RM and Alexander. They also take in 50% of the costs associated with the delivery of that service. And what they are having is the 75-year anniversary. They've offered two options that council can choose from: a half-page ad or a full-page ad. A half-page ad of $500,000 or $500, and a full-page ad at $1,000. To that regard, we took the liberty, if council so chose to move forward with this, that we created a sample ad, which I have available on the screen for you. It basically says, "Congrats to the Municipality of Alexander on your 75-year anniversary. On behalf of Mayor and Council and staff of the rural municipality of St. Clements," with our logo on it.
I'm fine with that. I'm just looking and I'm just wondering if the ad should say "to the rural municipality of Alexander." Like we're calling ourselves the rural municipality of St. Clements.
Sure, we can make that change in the
Like
ad.
That's their actual title.
What, rural? Yeah, that's what I thought. Because they were in LGD for many years after we were all municipalities.
Yeah, some people still think they're.
Okay, any questions or comments? And that I would think is a half page we're looking at here, or was it a full page?
We left it open for council to decide.
Okay, what is the wish of council?
Half page is good.
That was good.
Okay, so go ahead, Councillor Strang.
I'm going to be like Councillor Spicer and ask if we have a policy for this. But I was just waiting for him. I have no problem with this, so.
Okay, so we do have a resolution. I will ask the CAO to please read the resolution and we'll go from there.
Whereas a request was received to advertise in the RM of Alexander 75-year booklet, resolved, the council authorized the placement of a half-page ad, congratulations advertisement in the RM of Alexander 75-year booklet at a cost of $500.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Gazarovich, second, Councillor Strang. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, 6.3, I think our administrator was going to give us a little update here. I know there's a resolution for us to pass, but I think there's a bit of an update also.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, we've been working with the Manitoba Water Services Board on two projects. One has been the technical detailed design of the force mains from Lockport to the East Selkirk Lagoon. The other is, of course, the replacement or the upgrade to the water treatment plant for water softening, as well as an upgrade. Both of those projects have been going quite well. There is an opportunity to move forward on in the design of the water treatment plant. We've also looked at capacity and for the future to possibly link in the water to the Lockport area, as well as bringing in a sewer line from Lockport, but to take water back to Lockport. And we've had some discussions with the Manitoba Water Services Board. They do have some funds available from the existing projects, as well as they requested that a resolution be put forward requesting for official assistance in technical design and financial assistance. So we've drafted a resolution to that regard.
Thank you for that. Any questions before the resolution comes forward? I think it's pretty well self-explanatory. We're requesting them for some assistance. So can you please read the resolution for us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas the Manitoba Water Services Board is presently providing technical and financial assistance for a membrane softening water treatment plant upgrade in the RM of St. Clements. And whereas the RM St. Clements wishes to explore costs related with the construction of a water main from East Selkirk to Lockport. And whereas Bylaw number 9 of 2021 provides for the expenditure of borrowing of funds to construct and establish Phase 1 of the South St. Clements utility infrastructure, being the construction of a force main from Lockport to East Selkirk Lagoon. Therefore, be it resolved, the Council of the RM St. Clements requests for technical and financial assistance from the Manitoba Water Services Board for the construction of the water main for East Selkirk Lagoon to Lockport and the construction of the force main from Lockport to East Selkirk Lagoon.
I'll move it first.
Okay, moved by Councillor Spicer, second Councillor Strang. Go ahead, Councillor Spicer, with your question.
In the therefore be it resolved, should it say, Council of the RM of St. Clements requests technical financial assistance from Water Services Board for the construction of a water main from East Selkirk Water Treatment Plant to Lockport, not from the lagoon to Lockport?
We've identified the lagoon as the first phase in the funding capacity, and then we would look at the route options from the lagoon
to
the water treatment plant, because there's some opportunities for connecting properties onto the west of Highway 59, but council needs to review that, and we'll look at some technical aspects of that. But the idea was, if we are able to do this resolution, they can immediately do the technical design with the sewer mains and to come back with some actual costs for tender-ready documents.
Yeah, I was just thinking, why not ask for help on it all right now?
We
Like,
could.
not to disagree with the phasing of it, but if we pass the resolution for it all right now, then we know we're gonna ask them for help for all.
Yes, and our only concern was that we wanted to make sure that they were able to phase it. I'll make sure that they understand that, and we can make the change. Water main from, instead of East Selkirk Lagoon to Lockport, East Selkirk Water Treatment Plant to Lockport.
And then,
Yep.
yes, then make sure there's spaces
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I have a mover, I have a seconder, and if there are no other questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, next on the agenda is the mailing system, I believe.
Correct, Madam Mayor. We have an office mailing machine, and it's been in use for 9 years. It's 9 years old, and it's beginning to fail. We use it for a lot of our mass mailings, and we've had a 3-year lease that's expired. We've been using it for 9 years. We were paying $1,035.20 annually for the use of that machine, which included general maintenance. Pitney Bowes and Mill Office Solutions have come back with some lease options for us, and they've been summarized in the briefing note. There are basically 3 options available. One is current maintenance agreement, and the 3 options are the 3 different types of machines that we could lease. The recommendation is to use the Mill Office Solutions IN 600A. We feel that would be the most appropriate machine to move forward with.
Okay, thank you for that. Questions? Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
So I'm assuming that the increase in cost is because we're paying for maintenance and a lease agreement now, whereas for the last few years it's only been a maintenance agreement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, I will ask for the resolution, please.
Okay, just hang on 1 second. I'll make sure I load that properly.
So it's $3,700 and no legit stamps.
Resolved that administration be authorized to enter into a 66-month lease agreement with Pitney Bowes for a new Send Pro C auto mailing system at a cost of $1,944 plus applicable taxes per year.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarovich, second. Councillor Corbis, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, the next one, 6.5 on our agenda is enforcement vehicle and equipment. And Deepak, did you want to walk us through that one, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure whether Tyler gave you an up-to-date briefing note on this one.
We just close it there. The one he gave me. I hope there was nothing since he gave it to you on Friday.
Yeah, as of today.
Oh, no.
So he's still in the negotiations. So what I'll do is I'll talk briefly about it and look for a resolution to be able to move forward, but we'll have to come back with a vehicle.
Oh, okay.
So what happened was that our protective services officer was negotiating to acquire a vehicle. Unfortunately, they require a deposit, and as we didn't have a resolution of council, I didn't have the authority to give a deposit on a vehicle. And in order to do, as of this morning, the dealer sold the vehicle that we were going to be recommending. And so he's moving forward to negotiate for another one. So what I'll do is I'll quickly just walk through that. What we're looking at is a used vehicle as a replacement vehicle for our bylaw enforcement services from our protective services officer. And what we've budgeted as part of the 2021 budget has been $30,000 for the vehicle with $5,000 for clothing, equipment, and overall clothing, equipment, and supplies needed to function in his new job. That's including equipment such as body camera or any other things. We've done the analysis. The vehicle that we were looking at was a 2019 all-wheel drive SUV, a RAV4, and it was going to come in at a reasonable price with a $100,000 or 100,000 kilometer warranty, and with a good resale value. And we felt that we could stay within budget. And so the recommendation was to authorize the Protective Services Officer to move forward with purchasing process of the vehicle to allow purchasing of clothing equipment. So what I think what we can come back with is I can report back to council on the vehicle that we're looking to purchase, and we can just give authorization to move forward on acquiring it this way. If he finds one, at least put a deposit down on the vehicle as part of that process. And our resolution for this that I will create for you quickly. Okay, I'm having trouble bringing the, oops, again, I've opened up the wrong.
Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
So right now at the time, Tyler's reshopping for a vehicle, right?
I believe that is where he may be right now.
I was gonna say, counselor in the RMF St. Andrews is a broker that does work on that too, that you can get, if you told him the type that you were wanting.
Right.
Sorry, a counselor in St. Andrews? Sure, we can certainly approach him.
Get a price at least.
St. Andrews or West St. Paul?
No, St. Andrews. West St. Paul wouldn't give us warranty. Not the RM, the business.
So if I can, what I can do is read out a quick motion for you.
Please.
Resolve, council authorize the CAO to move forward on the purchase of the vehicle and appropriate clothing and equipment for the Protective Services Officer to a maximum budget of $35,000.
Moved by Councillor Horvath, second Councillor Bazarowicz. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
Were we still considering having like a flex vehicle, like part electric, part gas, or does that number not make that work?
We explored the flex vehicle and we discussed it with the dealers, and unfortunately the biggest advantage on these types of vehicles is at lower speeds inside urban settings. And unfortunately on the highways there was really no savings at this point in time, other than going to full electric. And right now, I'm not confident that we have a good handle on how many kilometers that Tyler would be doing with a full electric.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a mover, I have a seconder. If there are no further questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, 6.6, beaches of 59 highway sign. And do you have anything on that, Mr. Administrator?
A request was made by the Beaches 59 for an application for funding for the signage to be placed along Highway 59. They're asking for, their funding is conditional that they need to have a letter of support from the RM of St. Clements. They're not asking for any money, they're requesting the funds would be as part of an application and moving forward with the province for approval, but they need the representation from the RM.
Okay, so basically it's for a support letter, not any money at this point in time.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? Go ahead, Councillor Bazarowicz.
It's probably nothing we can do about it anyway, but there's a lot of signs up there that's just scrap. I don't even think those businesses exist anymore.
Well, I guess it depends, yeah, I guess it depends. I know a few years ago, one of the residents, a business owner up in Grand Marais, asked Action to fix some of them, and I know some of them have been removed, some of them have been redone, but I would have to agree, there's still quite a few that are in need of some tender loving care,
Like I
but,
said, businesses and everything there.
well, but it's not up to us, I don't believe, because half of those signs aren't even in our municipality there in Alexander, because they're on the east side of the road.
And a lot of it will be in the highways right away.
Yeah. So, okay, did you want to read the resolution for this letter of support, please?
Whereas Beaches of 59 has made an application for funding for signage to be placed along Path 59, and whereas funding approval is reliant on a letter of support from the RM of St. Clements, therefore be it resolved, administration be authorized to submit a letter of support.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Strang, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, 6.7, offer to purchase one of the lots in Sunset Bay, actually the next two, and it looks like they're right next door to each other, so if you have any information that you would like to share with council, Mr. Administrator, please do so.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My understanding is it's one purchaser who's purchasing the two lots, and purchaser is purchasing it for their two daughters. And it's great news. It's at the amount that council authorized, and this reduces our inventory again to just 3.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
I see that you will be in charge of clearing the brush again. It's starting to become a routine, I see.
On all the lakefront lots, because there
You did
is a
that one.
public reserve, that was one of the things that was identified when the marketing occurred, was that many people said that these weren't really considered lakeview. So in order to resolve that was that we had the discussions with council and said that we'd be able to entertain if people were looking at doing some brush clearing, but it's selective clearing. It isn't cutting down trees, it's removing dead bush out of there so that it creates some level of a clearing, but It's not cutting down all the trees at all. And an arborist would be involved in making sure that it was done properly so that it didn't damage the other trees.
Like, they're not cutting big trees.
No.
No, it's the underbrush that I think they were
Yes.
clearing out.
I think it's probably better that we have control over that.
Yeah, but they.
In the past, from my understanding is, some individuals have cleared it out on their own,
Right,
and that's caused issues.
yes.
And I have one other question is
Go ahead.
that we have to provide the survey certificate. Is that us or is that the people that we have in charge of selling for us?
That's us, and we have those survey certificates already.
Okay, okay. I just noticed there's a charge there, so
Yeah,
I'm
there
like, oh,
is.
that's another
Yeah.
thing, okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
any more questions? And
Just,
go ahead.
you said we have those certificates, they expire. Like, our bylaw says that we have to have, Berno's planning says you have to have a survey within a year or 6 months.
But current, I think, is the wording
Yeah.
that's on there.
So we might have to update that.
Go
We
ahead.
just last year received those survey certificates.
Okay.
For a sale of property, it's not as critical as what planning is requesting. What they're looking for is not necessarily a survey certificate as much as a building location certificate, and which will identify all other buildings on site. A survey certificate would be identifying all the details of the property. And so planning is requiring to make sure that there aren't any new buildings, because as people were bringing in old survey certificates, and so that's what they call a SAM, I think, or,
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam.
and so that's their new term. I'm a little old, I don't remember SAMs. What I remember is building location certificates where BLCs would be provided that gave you an indication what was on the site so that you could issue a permit. And I think that's their intent. So our survey certificates done will be appropriate for the sale. If they choose to construct, remember, these people are required to go through and get permits before they can connect into the sewer on site is to have a building. And then there's a development agreement that limiting the size and design of that building.
Okay, Heather had her hand up. What would you like to share with us, Heather?
We do have those surveys, and these offered purchases, it's the buyers are paying the $450.
They're paying their share,
It's
yes.
been with every offer so
Yes.
far.
So
Oh, and that survey certificate, if I remember correctly, it shows where the pins are at the corner of the lots.
And so far, everyone that we've given, the date hasn't been a problem.
yes,
So,
thanks for reminding me. What happened was when we identified these lots to be sold, some had survey certificates and some didn't. So we met with council and we said that we would go out, and as part of the marketing, they needed to have those survey certificates. So we hired a surveyor that was able to give us a discounted price for doing the rest of the properties. And for that, there was a 50/50 cost share with the prospective buyers.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions before I ask that the resolutions be brought forward? Okay, so I guess the first one for lot 28.
Resolve the offer to purchase Jinko QS Investments, Inc. Excuse me, Madam Mayor. For lot 28, block 1, plan 50313-99 Sunset Bay in the amount of $75,000 be accepted and the CAO be authorized to sign offer for purchase.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Strang seconds. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And we can move right into the next resolution for lot 29.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Same discussions for lot 29. Resolve the offer to purchase Jinko QS Investment, Inc. for lot 29, block 1. And we need to verify the plan number.
that's correct.
That's correct?
Yeah.
Okay, plan 50313-97 Sunset Bay in the amount of $75,000 be accepted and the CO be authorized to sign offer of purchase.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Horvis, Councillor Basilowicz seconds. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, so that finishes up our new and other business, I believe, so.
I think there's one more item, Madam Mayor, that was added.
Oh, okay, yes, okay, sorry. Go ahead and read the resolution. I think we're all pretty much aware of why we're doing this, and we've had, in the last few days, we've had a number of fires, and it is still very dry out there, and there's not much rain in the forecast, so I think we're doing the right thing by putting the burning back in place. So go ahead and read the resolution, please.
Whereas conditions pose extremely high risk of wildfires, and whereas Section 7 of Bylaw 5 of 2012 authorizes council to ban all burning if conditions warrant, therefore be it resolved, the Rural Municipality of St. Clements declares a fire ban on all burning, including outdoor fires, fires contained within non-approved fire pits, solid fuel burning appliances, and the use of fireworks, becoming effective April 27, 2020, and remaining in effect until removed by council.
Sorry, 2021.
Or 2021, sorry. April 27, 2021.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Boulanger, Councillor Bazarowicz, seconds. Discussion. I have a question. Did the first one that we did it have, I thought you could have, never mind. I thought it read that you couldn't have a fire in a container that had a lid and everything, but it says here is fires contained within non-approved.
Non-approved.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
So just for clarification, so if there's residents that have brush, grass, leaves, clean burnables, let's call them, even though they're trying to get away from burning, at this point, they would have to go to legal.
At this point, they'd have to go to LUBO. They could attempt to see if Dunning would be able to receive them or not. And it just depends on what the pile looks like at this point at Dunning or Clark or any of the transfer stations.
Okay, anything else? I had a mover, I had a seconder, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, so now we will move on to number 7 on our agenda, which is the closed list of accounts. And if you could read the resolution, please.
Resolved, council approve the April 27, 2021 list of accounts check 21000709 to 21000806 in the amount of $298,959.85 for payment.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Any discussions, questions, queries on the list of accounts? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, so we are at number 8 on our agenda, which are the bylaws, and we do have a couple of bylaws that we'll be dealing with this afternoon. So the first one is Bylaw 1 of 2020, and that is the solid waste management system.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There was a bylaw put forward in 2020 that was made available in January of 2020. Council put forward a bylaw for waste management services with some fee increases in order to manage costs and make sure taxes were kept at reasonable levels and not to be able to burden that on the tax bill. This was a bylaw that was putting forward some fee increases that hadn't occurred for nearly well over 10 years in the past. The intent was that there would be public consultation and get input and make sure that there was information shared with the public. But COVID hit, and due to COVID, there wasn't any opportunity to do that level of public consultation, so it was delayed till March of this year. And as of this March of this year, we went forward with a public campaign requested, that went out and shared the information, as well as identified what was the input received from our residents. The campaign itself, the report has been provided as a campaign report, which identifies, excuse me, background information related to why the RM was doing this and why we were moving forward. The engagement itself had specific objectives. The objectives were to create awareness of the proposed changes to the waste management fees, build an understanding of the rationale for these changes, including how those proposed changes would reflect on council's commitment for affordability for residents as part of a comprehensive plan for core services, as well as create opportunities for residents' feedback, questions, and suggestions to be considered prior to second reading and third reading. And so those comments and suggestions are provided here. The objectives were executed, and the following tactics of channel were created. First was, it was posted on our RM website, the information related with this bylaw, as well as we posted on the RM Facebook site, and which had a reach of over 4,000 people, as well as we issued a news release and updated the news release on our website, and we also issued Connect notice using our Connect software with direct mail to various individuals in the RM, well over 800 individuals there. We included information in also the April newsletter. To some 2,400 emails were sent out there, plus handouts and signage on site. It was also occurring where we were handing out handouts at our transfer stations at landfill site, as well as letters to commercial haulers were sent out, and frequently asked questions message was set up for, that was provided to council and staff. And as a result of that, we had a total of 69 respondents. Of those 69 respondents, 13 expressed support, 37 expressed concerns about fee increases and other types of concerns, and many others, 19, also provided general comments or suggestions on other improvements or changes for waste management services. And so to support, the support for the proposal included fee increases are fair. They support also talked about commercial and non-residents maybe paying a little higher as an increases in support. They also identified allowing for maybe some suggestions of one free bag, phasing in maybe the increases at 25 cents at a time as opposed to 1.75 fee increase. Reduction in fee increase proposed, maybe $1.50 per bag was also proposed. So there were some proposals on reduction of fees. Some were based on making waste disposal more cost effective and through partnerships, as well as support for the increase in fees is contingent upon seeing increased in environmental and recycling programs. And I think some of those things can be demonstrated. So I think some of the things that people were showing for support for, we saw that they were also things that we could see that the RM is already doing, and I'll bring those up in a minute. And support for the increase is concerned about potential for more illegal dumping. Is there something going to be done if you're having illegal dumping and people choose not to pay for the fees? The proposed rate increase is too high was some of the comments on the people that had concerns. There were concerns about comparing this to taxes paid, and the intent here, as you know, is not to rely on taxes, but was to move towards a user-paid system. And so the other was that bag disposal fees, bag disposal should be free, specifically to those who do not have garbage pickup. And the intent here is the people that have garbage pickup are also paying for that garbage pickup, so you already have a user fee as in the curbside pickup. So this was, but they felt that they shouldn't have to pay concerns, fee increases. So I think many people that were opposed were moving more towards it should be paid through my taxes. The other ideas for improvement was crack down on illegal dumping we're going to explore that as well as explore wood chipping, which is one of the things we're exploring, and I'll talk about more. Improve options for hazardous waste again. So as we can see, expand options for bulky waste, sort of quarterly pickup or some sort of a process there. I think council has had some discussions on bulky waste in the past. Expand focus on recycling, improve conditions for professionalism at the landfill site. I think we're also dealing with that. E-cards and other improvement cards, things that was recommended as part of this process. So our responses to that is fee changes beginning August 1st. Fee changes will be implemented August 1st and a review scheduled. And what we're recommending is a review to be scheduled in February of 2022, which gives it time to address it in the next budget cycle, and also gives us an opportunity to review what was the reaction, what was the real outcome of this, and was there maybe better options available now that you're getting charged on the bag fees, that is there more recycling occurring and those other things that we were looking for. Actions on illegal dumping of litter. RM will review the existing bylaws to look at changing some of those things. We're currently receiving calls on notifying when there's illegal activity. We need to also make sure that people understand that litter is not only along RM roads, but it can be on highways and provincial roads, and those are not something that we're responsible for. So we make sure that we contact those individuals and the promise directly on those. Each spring we also need seasonal staff, our green team students, to focus on doing cleanup in the RM. The RM is also open to working with various community groups interested in contributing to a greener and cleaner community. The RM is also working in partnerships and even supports certain groups such as the Red River Operations Cleanup, who are reducing debris left along the banks of the Red River. We are working on the Woody Waste Project. Logistics are just being discussed right now, and I think there's a meeting in the next few days that's being scheduled as a pilot for that pilot project with a big metro region. And the other is we are looking at easier, safe disposal of hazardous materials. We will be opening up the hazardous waste. So to address that comment, in Levo, starting June 1st. So residents will have an opportunity to bring hazardous waste to those places and dispose of it appropriately. Along with that, we're already continuing regarding continuing improvement to recycling and environmental stewardship. Since 2015, household recycling in the RM has been more than doubled, and I'll mention that in a separate discussion. We have a partnership with several environmental stewards to divert recyclables and harmful materials, such as electronics, batteries, metal, used oil, pesticide containers, and ozone depleting substances and tires. Improving on the conditions of the administration. Yes, a proposal has been made in this year's budget to provide electricity to the connections at Clark and Gull Lake transfer stations, as well as waste tracking improvements are being made to reuse of these cards so that we can track the waste usage, as well as receipts of fees paid for available at landfill and transfer station attendants upon request. So to provide receipts at the request from the attendants. So that was part of our communication campaign. Along with that, Public Works felt that as part of this bylaw, it was important to also identify many of the solid waste strategy improvements that the RM has completed. Many of those strategy improvements directly relate to some of the comments that were received, and sort of further illustrates that this is something that the RM is very serious about in managing waste and how to look at it and also at a much more regional level. As you know, Council has already approved several other resolutions to move towards woody waste recycling, as well as to take a look at our landfill site at a regional level. So with that, the RM also, Public Works has been working on household recycling, and with that, we can say that for 2020, we've recycled some 556,000 kilograms. This is a 6.7% increase from 2019, and Compared to 2015, which was 262,000 kilograms, we've doubled our recycling in the last 5 years. And the curbside refuse and recycling collection, it was started in 2018. Residents within the area were given a choice to pay for the service or opt out. When the service started, we had 1,600 customers, and presently we have 1,780 customers, showing that there's an increase in that capacity and an uptake in curbside collection. And of course, that's in the more denser areas of our municipality. Household hazardous waste depot, as discussed earlier, it will be opening up on June the 1st, 2021, and will provide residents with a safe place to dispose of household hazardous waste. We're also dealing with used oil. We take collecting used oils and shipping it to approved recyclers so that it can be used for and recovered appropriately by people with the right equipment and skills to do so.
Do we get paid for that? Do we get money for the used oil?
We don't get any money for the used oil, I'm not sure. I don't think we do.
Sorry.
But good question, thank you. I can look into it further. Transfer stations, reuse and recycling hauling. We've gone to an approved tender and procedures there. There has been some comments about the size of the containers, but those containers are used to be, they were appropriately sized in order to first take into consideration safety for the residents who are putting into those containers, and second, the ability to haul those containers so that we can take advantage and reduce our hauling costs to the transfer, from the transfer stations. And the other is the electronic waste. We have been working on the electronic waste. We've been creating a savings of about $7,000 a year, in addition to other extended producer programs and some funding for this, as well as based on the amounts we collect. So we do receive some funding for that, as well as for the household batteries, which are similar to e-waste. We collect them and then we are able to divert that from the landfill, and they are now taken to specific locations for approved recycling, as well as pesticide containers. So what that's doing is removing these things that are hazardous out of our landfill site. And so it's removing these hazardous materials, which extends the life of our landfill. This program is for the pesticides. It's also been has been continually removing these products as opposed to burying it. Then there's the Freon and appliance and scrap metal collection. Again, we handle the scrap metal and appliances better, and resulting in some extra revenue for us that we're getting for the scrap metal as it's distributed. Landfill Leachate. There's been a lot of work on that I think is worthwhile for our residents to know, which is the cell for the leachate has been constructed since 2017. We're able to do some landscaping around that area to better collect that leachate that's coming. This is the leachate from the water falling into the landfill so that it evaporates appropriately, and that we're not having to deal with it as a hazardous waste, and reducing our costs there. As well as, and we're continuing to explore that. As well as we've been working on landfill operations, on putting up some fencing and other things to make sure that their containers are appropriately larger containers for loads, and using smaller ones where necessary, as well as dealing with the safety and the covering around that area, as well as we're dealing with litter and with fencing and managing the litter to some degree in that area. And the transfer station improvements, we do have these transfer stations. I think it's very important to note that there were some comments made about maybe that we need to reduce some transfer stations. The bylaw did talk about the reduction of some of those transfer stations. I think it's very important to recognize that in the Winnipeg metropolitan region itself, which is 18 communities, there's 21 transfer sites total. Of those transfer sites, 4 are in our own community. So we are proportionally larger number of transfer stations than most of our surrounding communities. And I think even some of our residents did recognize that. Yes, Councillor?
So Winnipeg only has 2, right?
I thought 3 were there, the depots. I'm not sure if they got all 3 collected. I'm only relying on memory now. I remember approving 3, but I know 2 are definitely constructed, I just don't know about the 3rd one. They were gonna have one in each parts of the quadrant of the city, basically separated by the rivers. But that goes to show for that size of facility where these large stations, it does require some driving, but you know, you're disposing of all these things at no cost. And so we are looking at that, but at the same point, we're having to deal with these transfer stations. These transfer stations, there's an expense associated to managing these transfer stations. The expenses that are associated to managing these transfer stations are now that we have to meet with workplace health and safety requirements, provide power, provide proper working conditions such as heat and cooling in inclement weather and those types of things. So I think it's very important to recognize that as we move forward to look at managing our costs for our ratepayers, that this is something we're going to continue to look at. Then the burning and the wood waste and yard waste, as you know, the province is recommending to stop burning. And as part of that, the council has made a commitment to work with the Winnipeg Metro region for working on the woody waste project, which has just been initiated, which will be a pilot project to take a look at receiving clean wood and be able to do the wood chipping out of it as opposed to burning that wood, which can be then reused for multiple purposes. As well as we are looking at dirty wood, such as painted wood and other types of you know, railroad ties, those kinds of contaminated wood, or even infected wood from pests would go to the landfill site where we can chip them and they can be used as ground covering for the landfill site. So again, trying to avoid from the burning, which is not a good solution. As well, as we move forward, I think that may count towards our green credits as a municipality as we move forward. So along with that, we've updated the solid waste bylaw, as you've seen, and we're dealing with various safety items. So that was one of the public works. I thought this was an important document to share with council and with our residents to say there is continued progress on this very important topic of managing our waste and managing our solid waste. And with that, what we have is the administrative report that comes along with this, that's based on the public consultation and recommendations. The administration is recommending, first of all, I've already covered the majority of the background. And some of the things, what's happened is that since the original bylaw was created in 2020, new information has transpired. One of those is tires and rims. We were charging a separate price for tires on rims to be recycled, as there was a cost to us, but the recyclers stopped charging us the cost. So we felt that that savings should be diverted right back to our residents, and a council passed a motion to change that. So the bylaw has been updated to accommodate for that. The other is, in order for this bylaw to come into effect, we're recommending that to give everyone a chance to understand and to give us an opportunity to further communicate after this that we're recommending the bylaw, the new fees and structure come into place on August 1st. At which point we can also explore additional items as for future recommendations that we can bring forward, which would be some policy changes and other things that we're recommending. One of those is a policy change related to ID cards being used so that we can identify residents who are coming and utilizing our transfer stations as opposed to non-residents, and also a policy and procedures developed for our ID cards, how we can develop those cards, distribute them to our residents, and go into a more e-card situation. That can also be more data that we can begin to use in order to understand which transfer stations are being used and how and to what kind of detail level and what materials are coming through there. We can start doing some analysis on. The other is, and that comes down to the entire asset management cycle that we need to do. And then we get into, in order to introduce these cards, we will have to develop a policy on how those cards are used. What if you don't have a card? So we feel that we can come back later with those future recommendations, at which point then implement them, and then 1 month after start applying them. So our intent is that by August 1st, we can have all our ducks in a row and appropriately set up and communicated to our residents before we implement. And so the recommendations from the administration is that the administration recommends giving second and third reading to bylaw, being a bylaw of the Royal Municipality for the establishment of the operation of the solid waste management system, and that it comes into force August 1st with the noted amendments that we've already made. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That is the end of that long presentation.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Administrator. Any questions, queries, comments on the report that Deepak just provided to us? Okay. Doesn't appear that there's any queries, so if it is the wish, we can move on to the second reading of bylaw number 1 of 2020.
Resolved, bylaw 1 of 2020 being a bylaw for the establishment and operation of a solid waste management system be given second reading as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Spicer, seconded by Councillor Boulanger. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Okay, so we have third reading for bylaw number 1 of 2020, and please remember this is an automatic recorded vote, so please keep your hands raised, whether you're for or against, and if I could have the resolution, please.
Resolved, bylaw 1 of 2020 being the bylaw of the establishment and operation of the solid waste management system be read a third time as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Vazzarowicz, second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I need to commend Brett and Heather and Greg and Norlita. They did an incredible job of doing this public campaign with our consultants and documenting the work that had been done.
Nice that it's over.
Yeah, it's good.
Long time coming.
I have a couple of questions though, and they're more kind of just general questions. I guess I've been kind of biting the bullet at home and trying to unpack some of the junk I have sitting around my house. Where can a person take clothing that is not good enough to go to Goodwill, and I don't want to send it to the landfill? Like, what do you do with that? Like, I hunted around yesterday and I could not find any place that takes that kind of stuff.
Put in a burn barrel.
Can't have that either. Go ahead, Sandra.
I was going to say, you take it to Goodwill, to one of the places. They then sort it and they put it for and sell it for rags.
Oh, okay,
So,
okay.
There's
Scott?
also those diabetes.
Yeah, those
kiosks.
containers, yeah, see, in those
I think they take the.
well, see, in those diabetes ones, I always put stuff that is good to resell, or, you know, like that's, but the stuff that I've gotten down to is not good for anybody other than like rags, or, you know, like, I got a few pairs of blue jeans that are no good for nothing, so maybe that's what I'll do.
I don't
so.
know during COVID if the diabetes boxes are even open.
Yeah, they are.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I
I
remember they
noticed
shut them down for a while.
I noticed in Selkirk that they were, so.
Depending on how old the jeans are, you may think they're good for nothing, but they may be worth a lot more.
Yeah.
They're not that good.
I can put it in my
If they're old, it's just old jeans are very popular now.
Well, these are past the point of being wearable, I'll say it that way.
Your
That's
husband
the
has,
style now, yeah.
your husband has enough rags in the garage?
Well, yeah, everything else I cut up for rags, like t-shirts and old bedding and all that kind of stuff. And that was another thing, is comforters and old blankets and stuff like that. Couldn't find anywhere where you could take that.
You know where you'll get rid of that? In July, fill your car or Randy's truck,
Yeah,
drive down to Forks,
yeah.
and just park there. And there is people living in the trees they'll welcome a blind.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they would, so I did find out something very interesting, and I know we've talked about this company before, Mother Earth Recycling,
Yes.
and we talked about how they take mattresses and those sorts of things. They also take every kind of electrical appliance or electronics that you can possibly think of.
What are they doing with them?
They refurbish them.
They take them apart and they've been hiring indigenous children
Yeah,
or indigenous individuals, and then what they're using is that as an opportunity to give gainful employment, and then they resell it to other companies. There's gold in
yeah. Like
Inside the
I knew
electronics.
that they took like the mattresses and box springs and those sorts of things, but when I started looking at, like they take frying pans and anything and everything that you can possibly think of is electronic or that plugs in, they'll
You
take.
weren't on that tour that time?
No, I wasn't there that time.
They even had a little store in there, at that time, they were selling electronics, I guess, that they fixed.
Refurbished?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If you get time, go on their website.
I
They were
did.
actually featured on CTV News one morning.
Oh,
And they
okay.
had the video of everything. It was very interesting
Yeah.
of how they took the metal apart and where everything went, even just of mattresses.
Yeah, and another thing that we talked about very briefly is, I know on one of the tours that I was on was in Rockwood at the site that one of the counselors looks after. He works for the RM, but he's also a counselor. They have a swap shop, as he calls it. He takes all the good stuff that comes in and he puts it in this building. It's all undercover.
Yeah.
And you can go in there and you can pick whatever, like there's lamp, like it's all good stuff that if I bought new living room lamps and the ones I had were good, you can take them there and someone else will treasure them.
No charge.
No charge.
That's a good idea.
Magazines,
So
Just
it's a
keeps
good
it out
idea.
of the landfill.
Yeah, keeps
It's
it
a
out.
really good idea.
Yeah,
Very good.
so, and I know at one time we talked about doing something like that at our landfill, but we had so many other issues going on at the time with the leachate and everything else and the actual garbage site that kind of didn't take off, but maybe once we get a little more organized, we could set up something like that, because I was quite impressed with that. Go ahead.
Because they have fantastic.
Art
I know
Gowdy.
Art.
Gowdy, yeah, yeah. And I, like there was just everything in there, like Glenn says, magazines, books, anything and everything that you don't want but is still good for somebody else to use, he'll take it there. Go ahead, Sandra.
Just to let you know, the East St. Paul has a site, and also people, the St. Clements residents in the south use it too, and it's called Buy Nothing East St. Paul. And it's where you take a picture of it. If somebody wants it, they come to your house and pick it up.
Oh,
You
wow.
can just leave it on your step and the first person to claim it, or they'll do a draw, because there's some stuff on there that is,
And what's the name of it?
it's called Buy Nothing East St. Paul.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so a lot of people down in the south end use that with the East St. Paul residents, and
Yeah.
it's just to get rid of stuff so it's not going into the landfill.
Right. Well, and that's important too, so. I'm sorry that we digressed there for a few minutes, but I guess we can move on.
It was consistent with the agenda item, Madam Mayor.
I guess we can move on to 8.3 on the agenda, which is bylaw number 10 of 2021, which is the tax levy bylaw for first reading.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is our 2021 financial plan. This is my last year when I came to you. That was my first financial plan I presented to this council, but was not a part of creating. This time I'm a part of creating and presenting it to you for the second time, but a first financial plan. I'm very proud to say that we've been able to come forward with a financial plan that's delivering on a significant amount of the needs and the relationship with the RM's strategic plan. So for today, I'm just going to, it is coming in for first reading. Our financial plan public hearing will occur on May the 4th at 6 p.m., at which point I'll provide a much more detailed presentation walking through the various items of the budget document. But for today, as part of the first reading, to give you an introduction, This was first year that the council is not only adopting one financial plan for this year, but also approving in principle for the following 2 years. So it creates a level of predictability as we move forward into the future. It continues to allocate resources in support of the direction that the RM and council had established as part of the strategic plan, which this council established in 2019. As you know, the strategic plan offered a vision for the RM with values that would govern how we would function, and then eventually with some goals that needed to be guiding all our service delivery and direction as we move forward. Those were identified as part of our strategic plan, and this financial plan brings those things into fruition. As part of the strategic plan, I think it's important to also talk about the school tax and the mill rate comparisons and what's happening. As you know, the province of Manitoba has also been very actively looking at reducing the school taxes, and they've kept them at a specific mill rate level, and so they've been slowly reducing that. So as we showed you last year, there was a reduction in the tax bill for the residents, because the mill rates had gone down in those schools. We need to emphasize at least that we understand that the total tax bill that's been delivered to our residents, 58% of that total bill is school taxes, and 42% is the municipal taxes. And so the municipal taxes, the RM has made a commitment of steady but modest increases, in some cases below cost of living increases. And council has followed that principle, and I'm glad to say that council is continuing with that principle of just a modest 2% increase. As you can see on the slide, we are at a very low amount. It would be reminiscent to me not to mention the 25% discount that the province of Manitoba is now providing. So the tax bill will be delivered to our residents, but they will also receive a 25% discount this year on the total of their school tax bill. So that they'll get a 25% discount of the total tax bill, but it'll come as a separate check. That is not going to impact the tax bill itself, but it will be received. So ultimately, our residents will be paying less in taxes. With this 2% increase, we're looking at a modest increase of $27 on an average house valued at $300,000 in the RM. And from that, just wanted to highlight some of the revenues that we've identified as part of the total tax levy. As you can see, is for 2021 budget is $19,258,644.05. With grants in lieu of taxes, which are usually from other levels of governments for tax purposes, comes to a total of $20 million. School requisition is $11 million, and that's the total tax levy itself. Our bill rate produces $8 million, so that's the 42% comparison. In addition to that, we have other revenues of $5 million, which are various grants from other levels of governments, along with our fees and charges, as well as any other revenues that have been identified in the financial plan. The other is the transfer from the accumulated surplus and reserves. So this is taking into consideration the surpluses from last year, as well as the transfers from reserves. As you will see in a later presentation on the 4th, the $8 million that's collected doesn't all go directly to services. Some of that money is used to provide, to put into reserves, so that council has made the decision that we will continue to fund much of our capital purchases through existing dollars. So funds are put into reserves, and then funds are drawn out on an annual basis as necessary according to our plans for roads and equipment replacement. And so the total municipal revenue then comes into, including the other revenues and the transfers from accumulated surpluses and reserves, comes up to $18 million, which then in relation to is exactly the same to our expenditures for the year. Those expenditures identify general government services, protective services, which includes fire and bylaw enforcement and those things. And so this is consistent to the plan, page 1 of the financial plan, and it shows all the details associated with it, with a total of $18,467,000 and change for the balance of the budget. And in that, I thought that it would be important to also take a look at those expenditures in another fashion. So the 2020 expenditures by service, take a look at those services. So the tax dollars that's collected go to pay for transfers to reserves, as I mentioned earlier, with reserves being populated with funds, as well as for running of government and professional services to support that, legislative services, as well as our cost for the province to do that assessment and taxation, as well as fire and protective services that are there, our costs that we have for health and welfare that we contribute back, and the transportation services is of course the largest part of the pie, which covers not only transportation in the normal sense, but it also includes hard and gravel roads, as well as some of the utilities that are part of that. Then what we have is environmental services, which deals with sewer and solid waste for our purpose, so basically wastewater and solid waste. And then what our cost is for the planning and development services that we are provided for the RRM. Economic development, of course, covers many different things, including some of the grants and other things that we provide out to other communities and other groups. And then recreation and cultural. And then what we have is fiscal services, where when we transfer into the reserves, this is where we take out some of those reserves for capital, for grants, and for debt services. Now, in the debt, I thought it was important to recognize that we do have debt, but it's not all funded through taxes. Debt is funded in many different ways, and that's to deliver on, that all municipalities have to borrow in order to deliver the infrastructure services that they have to, that they're responsible for. How you do that and to what level is what determines how well a municipality is being run. In this case, the general taxation is only covering 31%. Gas tax, which we receive as funding from the federal government, and that's part of those grants that I identified earlier that were there, that's 34%. Utility rates for things for our water and wastewater services are 12%, so the utilities pay for their own service costs. And then what we have is local improvement districts taxation, LID taxation, which is development of local improvement districts for specific services, such as a local improvement district that was established in Old River Road that was paying for the taxes, that was a separate part of the tax to pay for the infrastructure to support that delivery of local service, not the regional service like the main service pipes, but the local service. And so that kind of explains how that debt is. To understand a little bit further, we also have to take a look at the debt and say, how does it sit? All municipalities have debt ceilings. We are in very good shape, and compared to other municipalities, this year we're in even better shape, mainly because of our revenues going up from grants and other things that will help to continue. This is something that we have to keep an eye on all the time. One is your municipality's debt capacity. That's based on, no municipality can be, from the Manitoba Municipal Board, is what is a requirement of all municipalities dictated by the province of Manitoba, saying that you cannot be 7% of your entire assessment base. Cannot be greater. So your total debt cannot exceed 7% of your entire assessment base. And so at this point, there's still 4.37% of that debt capacity remaining, which is totaling over $32 million to our assessment base. And as you can imagine, more development that occurs in the RM increases our base, and then that further benefits us because it increases our capacity. And then there is, and also that increases on the second component of development. Not only is the value of that development, but it's also the taxes that are collected. And that comes down to the debt payment capacity. As part of the debt payment capacity, where the requirement is that we cannot exceed 20% of the total revenue coming in to the RM. That's the taxes, grants, all those grants and fees and charges and transfers. Those things are all counted into our revenue. This year, we still have 12.16% available, totaling to $2.3 million in payments. What does that translate to? That means I have $2.3 million worth of payments. This year, it was about for $2 million, I think, borrowing, we were able to get at $144,000 approximately a year. So it gives you an idea the capacity and the debt room that we have as a municipality, which means which is one of the goals that council identified, commitment to fiscal management, and that has allowed the RM to continue to be in a sound financial position in relation to the debt ceilings for the RM. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And in addition to that, this year, in our commitment, in the past, there's been commitments to public consultation, public engagement, sharing information with our residents. This year, in addition to providing our financial plan, our tax bylaw, and the financial plan for our residents to review before the public hearing, we've also created a financial plan outline. And I thought it was important to recognize this financial plan outline. It simplifies and highlights the details of what's available in that financial document that's mostly all numbers. In this financial plan, we talk about, there are comments from our council to our ratepayers of their commitment to the ratepayers, which speaks to dealing with some of the challenges that we faced last year and as we continue to face as we move forward. It talks about what this council did at the inception of this council by establishing a strategic plan which set the direction for the next 4 years. And this is showing you year 3 into that and how you've continued to deliver on those services and those goals that were identified as part of that strategic plan. It also identifies highlights so that it's easy for somebody to understand the level of commitment and what some of the things that are happening. It talks about some of the major road projects that occurred last year. It also talks about the new major road projects that are occurring this year. And it identifies also our commitment to our strategic infrastructure and how, when unanticipated revenue came into the RM, such as the climate resiliency grant for the Guns Creek diversion, and how that allowed the RM to refocus and redivert funds to be able to take control of the strategic infrastructure requirements for the Henderson wastewater project and the water softener project, and be able to fund those, our share directly, and to be able to get that at the best borrowing rate available. The borrowing rate that this RM received is no longer available. It was the lowest it's been in my recollection. And then along with that, we've focused on any cost savings or any cost reductions that were achieved last year, produced various year-end surpluses that generated to about $870,000, including some grants that were received that were unanticipated. And that $870,000 was then diverted to appropriate reserves, as well as council made a commitment to creating a general purpose reserve. So it talks about what's the intent of that general purpose reserve, to deal with It also talks about the multi-year budgeting that you can't speak to in a financial plan. It mentions about that. There are also financial highlights related to what is the level of capacity and what are we doing with all those reserves and funds. So it speaks to the commitment the council made to putting 1 mill rate directly into roads so that we can rely less, use reserves to do our road works. As you saw, that $2.4 million, none of that is coming out of borrowing. All that road work is coming out of cash to capital, in a sense. It's coming out of our reserves to be able to do that. So we continue to replenish them and then rely less on them. That allowed us to increase the capital projects for this year because of those surpluses. And those are listed in here as well, as I'll mention in a minute. Along with that, there are other projects such as road construction, equipment purchases, which is increased, and as well as the fire department. Finally, it talks, not finally, but next, what it does is it talks about, and I apologize. I do give you some details, not necessarily not, but I think it's important to share this information with council and with our residents. And the municipalities have limited options available for generating revenue. I think it's important to recognize that. And so this is an opportunity to highlight that, and that's why the municipality has to look at other options, such as when they did their strategic plan to look at fees for service. So when we look at waste management plans, those types of things, is to make sure that we keep our tax base affordable and attractive for investment and for people to move to this community. Because with them, they bring more capacity for taxes and more capacity for borrowing if we need it. So the RM continues to monitor as well, as I mentioned, for borrowing, our borrowing capacity, and I've already covered that, as it also talks about that. And it talks about how that, what's the cost for paying for this borrowing, where does it come from, how do we pay it back. It also talks about the modest increases that we're doing, and it also goes into the distribution of taxes, the 42% to 58%, and what the total municipal revenue is. And I think it's important to recognize that these transfers from reserves that we're doing by managing and transfers from other governments to us help to pay for 22% of the overall expenditures of the RM. So the municipal taxes are only paying for 46% of those taxes, of those expenditures. The rest of the expenditures are coming in from grants and fees from other services. So there's transfers and from and the utilization of our reserves. So we get transfers, and then we get grants and other fees. And grants are the ones that we can't always count on all the time, but they fluctuate, and that's the part. This year, 46% is the number that our municipal taxes are paying for. That 46% translates to an average house of $300,000 house, assessed house, not a $300,000 valued house, but assessed at, I think it's still at 2020 levels or 2019 levels. I cannot remember right now. And that generates a total of $1,377 in taxes. This year, that translates to a $27 increase. That's it for that. And in comparison, the province of Manitoba just completed their budget, and in their budget, they showed that an average household, a $70,000 income household, which is the average household in Manitoba, household income, they've said the provincial taxes on that, including school taxes and income tax, provincial income tax, and PST and everything else. I'll have to verify the PST. I can't remember if PST is included. I think it's just the other provincial income and other taxes. And so those taxes generate $11,000 and 976 cents, or $11,976 is what those taxes are. In relation to that, we asked for municipal taxes for $1,377. What that translates into is all those services that I had mentioned earlier, and this document describes those services, so I think it'll be a very important read for our residents and for anybody who's sort of viewing this presentation to be able to review that and to be able to get that before to help understand and maybe ask questions to the RM at the public hearing. That was broken down into the budget's amounts, totaling the $18 million that is our total expenditures and the various services and groups of services that we've created. If you apply the 46% of the budget, that would be the number that they've displayed, which translates to a percent of the total of that, and that translates to the tax dollars. So when you, the 46% of that's applied for the $1,377, as an example, it contributes $336.72 for transportation services. So I need, just to use that as an example, that $336 is paying for gravel roads, dust control, regrading gravel roads, hard surface roads, snow clearing, spring cleaning, all other transportation related services. That $300 is paid for that. So is that economical compared to what you would be charged for getting your driveway cleaned, for snow clearing in a year, as a comparison, or in its comparison to other services? So is the RM working hard to keep cost expenses and manage those things properly? Yes, would be my comment. And so that's what that translates to. Along with that, it was very important to take a look at the operating budget and to also understand some of the core strategies that Council adopted as part of a strategic plan. Those core strategies were to establish an asset management plan, secure grants for sewer. So these were specific strategies that have been identified here, all of which this plan is attempting to address. Along with that, this plan also talks about what the commitment is towards other areas, so that to pull those out so our residents know where that level of commitment is. And that's talking about not only managing the budget, but managing the budget at 20, our expenditures for services to be kept at the 2020 levels for the next 3 years. To be able to balance a budget according to those 3 years and to have the other ones approved in principle. That was what was accomplished this year by this council. Along with that, this council has made a commitment to manage their reserves, and we had a significant influx. So it's important to recognize that so our residents are able to see that we had a significant influx on the gas tax reserve, which is one of our funding sources that pays for some of our borrowing. So we had another influx of a one-time commitment of doubling it to $611,000, which will make that reserve much more healthier as we move forward. It also looked at commitment of, as we finished up this year, our commitment to doing, when council went out and borrowed money to do all our drainage projects, as we complete those drainage projects, this year council is also putting money into, so you dealt with your strategic draining and your high priority drainage projects, now you're putting in $40,000 a year on an annual basis to continue on dealing with those second level and third level and fourth level drainage issues that were identified by the RM. And so along with that, the recreation side of the budget, it's being put forward that there's going to be $260,000 this council is committing towards trails development, trails and active transportation development. Along with that, we're looking at possibly leveraging as much as $60,000 to $260,000 of additional funding to expand on those trails as we move forward. And so these are trails in the north in Grand Marais. It's also being used to accommodate working towards boat launches, non-motorized boat launch, as well as trails in East Selkirk and connecting into the Great Trail. And then along with that, I think it's also important to recognize that there's this RM has a variety of citizens who offer their commitment through volunteerism. And through that commitment, what this RM is doing now is recognizing that and displaying that through this communication, saying that those taxes are not only just for the provision of services here, but also for the social fabric of the community, that's developed through community consultation and community development and community commitment. And that $193,000 is being put out from this RM's grants to those community groups to be able to deliver on those services and these nonprofit groups that are sitting out there, as well as some of our community centers and so forth. So the other is the capital budget. This year, we have added items into the capital budget compared to what we thought we needed in 2020. So that was because more money was being able to put into the reserve and it was able to deal with the issues. Otherwise, these would have been expenditures and they would have had an impact on tax increases. Right now, all our capital projects outside of our strategic infrastructure projects are borne by reserves. No borrowing needed. So important to recognize. The borrowing itself is at a better financial position than when we approved the budget in 2020. We have increased our borrowing capacity, our borrowing amount from what was projected in 2020 by well over $1 million. We inputted 2 significant projects, so we took $4.3 million in savings and turned it into $5.5 million in new borrowing at lower debt payments than what we were projecting in 2020. That's the level of financial management this council has made a commitment towards. And finally, the financial summary. And then this document also talks about the commitment council makes as we move forward into the new year. And that, Madam Mayor, is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. So now I think we can proceed to first reading of our tax levy bylaw.
Resolved, bylaw 10 of 2021 being a bylaw to provide for the 2021 annual tax levy to be given first reading.
Can I have a movement, please? Councillor Spicer, Councillor Strang, seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, so we are down to communications for information, and I think there was one that Deepak had mentioned earlier, and it's not...
There are 2 communications, if I could, Madam Mayor,
Sure.
that I'd like to draw your attention to. One is the news release from AMM related to Bill 37 of the presentation made by the AMM. And I think it identifies much of the remarks that were made by AMM on behalf of all the communities. And so many of those did participate in producing the amendments that the province of Manitoba had already. That level of communication, although we didn't make a presentation ourselves, it was, we had that level of communication with AMM in the past, and they had followed through on all of those, in similar to what some of we were consistent in their, and in support of those types of comments. In addition to that, with my work working with the regulations, I feel confident that the province has been listening to the municipalities and are going to be addressing things that are not necessary in legislation, but will be addressed in the regulations. On top of that, this next item that I wanted to draw to your attention is a communication from municipal relations. And we're going to look at providing this online as well to our residents. But what it does is it highlights the education property tax rebate and how it's being implemented by the province of Manitoba. So our residents will see a reduction in their taxes, a fairly significant reduction for some. The more taxes you pay, the larger your rebate is going to be. But even if you are paying less taxes, you're still getting a rebate. So rebate checks will be coming. The tax bill will still stay the same, with some adjustments that they've made on the tax bill. So in order to make sure that level of communications, we're also going to put this out on our website and communicate it, but we'll continue to communicate it closer to tax time. But I thought it's an important read also because it explains how they apply it, how the rebate applies to the 25%, how it applies to the tax credit advance that was in your bill, because people will see that they used to get a $700 tax rebate as on the bill itself, that's going to turn into $525 because they've applied that 25% on the gross, but they've also applied it on the rebate. At the end of the day, it still translates into more dollars in the pockets of our residents.
Okay, thank you for that. Can I go back though to the first one, to Bill 37?
Yes, Madam Mayor?
Any idea when those regulations might be coming out? I mean, there's still lots of questions around a lot of different tables, and I think everybody's patiently waiting for those regs to come out to see what kind of changes there are going to be, so.
I think they're going to be coming out shortly. They were, the work on those regulations was to take a look at this as well as look at any amendments to Bill 37. My understanding is that they, our group has finished working to date, and they're going to move forward on the next step in the near future. I'm anticipating that there should be some level of communication coming out from the province very shortly.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just curious because everybody is kind of saying like, you know, and is it still correct that even after the regulations come out, there can still be changes to the bill?
Yes, well, after the regulations come out, there will be the review.
Right.
That's a commitment that they can make the change to the bill.
Okay.
I doubt that they'd make a change to the bill in the middle. Once the bill, and from my understanding, the bill is passed with those amendments from the standing committee.
Yeah, well, second reading it got, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I thought there was still an opportunity, though, the way it was explained at one point in time, that there was still an opportunity after the regs came out that changes could still be made.
Go ahead, Horseshack.
So,
After the regulations came out, I'm not aware of anybody
Okay.
making that level of commitment.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor
that's
Horvis.
a pretty big level. So you pay your taxes, okay? And you get this money back. Now that's revenue coming back to you. So now, that is, you're paying, you're gonna have to pay back on it. It's like the COVID rebate thing.
I don't know. I
Well,
don't
I
know
mean-
whether it'll be seen as income, from, as income or is it a tax rebate? If it's a tax rebate, that's not usually seen
As income?
as income.
No,
Okay,
so it,
Like, you don't report on your tax rebate
okay.
on your federal taxes at the end of the year.
Yeah,
I
right.
thought you do
After
over a
April,
certain amount.
what you received as a rebate check, it's for taxes you had already paid.
Oh, yeah, okay. that
So,
makes sense, yeah.
so it's not usual, but I don't know what the
But
province
it's
is.
for
Right.
taxes you've already paid, sorry, but
Yeah,
it's for
go ahead.
taxes you've already paid. So you paid those taxes, you get, if you pay more, you get a discount in your tax. You get declare that.
That's
Now
right.
you're getting the money back, so they're gonna charge you for it.
Don't know for sure,
No.
there might be, I haven't, I'm not sure what level that they would have to, that's a very good question, I'll have to look into.
I pay
The
my
point
auto
is-
back, I pay it, I deduct that as an expense, right?
Yep.
I get a rebate from AutoPack back, I get taxed on it.
I don't know.
I
That's a
don't
good
know.
question. That's a good
It's a
question.
double whammy, they're giving it to you, but they're taking it back.
There will be, so they are timing the rebate checks to come out in concert with the tax bills. So that there's not a large gap in receiving a large check and expending it and then getting the bill with all those expenses still on there, thinking that my bill's gonna be less.
Okay, so we're done all, if there's nothing else under the communications for information, we're up to council reports. And I'm going to start today with Councillor Sutherland.
Haven't got very much. I even forgot the date, I didn't mark it down, we had a spring convention. That's the only thing that I got.
That was the 14th to the 16th, depending on which sessions you took.
Yeah, climbing Creed plan. That was the only thing that I had was that. And then the April 20th was our budget. That's it?
And that's it, okay, thank you for
Yep.
that. Counselor Strang.
Okay,
Or,
on April 14th, you want to have a little nap over there for a bit? April 14th, I had River Planning, we had a special meeting, and it was in regards to Selkirk leaving. So we discussed different things from joint information, records transferring, assets, liabilities, all these issues were brought up to their attention.
To who's, to the board today?
Yes, so how we're going to, just different things that we're going to have to be dealing with. That was our first meeting that we've had that way. I also had a rec meeting that evening, and it was for the Legacy Park meeting with Brenna and two of the board members, and right now we're just getting prices and to come up with something so we can bring it back to council here and have, let everyone else know and pass something so we can finish the project over there.
when you bring it back to the council, you mean the council's gonna have to pay for it, or?
I'm saying yes. But you have to remember, we do give them a grant, that's something we're gonna have to discuss here at the table. When we come
Talking about the bricks.
Yes. We have to get that project finished and done and over, so. And it's even us doing fundraising down in the south, that project's getting thrown back in our face. So I said to Brenna, we have to get that done and over, so.
Yeah.
So actually Brendan's working, we're emailing back and forth, and we do have two of the members right now that are on board, and we have one resident who, his children play hockey, that he's a landscaper. So we're getting a price there just to see what we're looking at, and then whether that's a base or whether we, of course, we're gonna want to go lower, but then at least we have a price set that, just to know where we're sitting in the ballpark range.
We got no choice, we gotta get it done.
Gotta get it done.
There's people that paid money for a
That's
brick with their
right.
name on it, and
Yeah.
they haven't said anything. The money that I personally went and got from them, nothing's been said, so.
But
Yeah,
like it's-
I've had a couple of people approach me a while back, I think, before Sandra started working on the project, so yeah, it's, I mean, I don't know what it's gonna end up costing the municipality, but it's something that we have to complete, so.
Just a quick question.
Scott and then David.
What's the timeline of when this fundraising took place till now?
2010?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time then.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
So how much money do they physically have of that? Do you have a figure?
Well, they don't physically have
This
any more.
much?
They have nothing there.
No, what did they
Yeah,
collect?
right.
What did they collect?
What did they collect?
20 or 30,000.
Oh, no. It was, well, okay, so it was 108,000, but that was putting up the fencing. There was lots of money was fundraised for that project of putting Legacy Park together.
No.
Not just the
How much for the bricks? How much
Oh, the
for
bricks? I don't have, you know what,
Well, how
Brenna
many
took
bricks were
only,
sold?
130 bricks.
How much a brick?
It all varied.
Did it all
Oh,
depend?
how much you wanted to give?
Yeah, Terry Gashubi gave $500.
But those aren't the bricks. Those are donations then.
It was for a brick. But he-
If he did a brick was, because there was an event going on. What happened is there were companies that came and gave donations. So it could have been through Terry's Towing that he did that. And those people we've talked about making a plaque and then putting all the people that donated and the residents that put bricks. They were given also a ticket into Legacy Park because they had a big event here, and the brick, and that was $45 for that.
Oh,
that
so
they got the-
$45 a brick,
Yeah,
and 130 times 45?
Yeah, but part of that was for the ticket.
part of that was for the ticket though too, yes.
So it might be 25?
I thought it was 25 or 30 for
Tax
the brick
receipt for
itself.
25.
For the brick itself. See, and then we took it as with the ticket because people bought them that way. So that's why I guess it got tickets sold to come to the event. But there was a lot of, there's lots of donations that were given, so which sort of offset the price, right?
Ricky,
But we're trying to keep it back into that
130
range. Yeah,
So
sorry.
the money that was collected for the bricks could be anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000.
Okay.
So we're trying to keep it to get something done. We've already had one price, but Brenna's really thrifty with grants. I have to say that she's very, like, when these prices are coming, she's putting her foot down, so.
Did you still have your hand up there, Dave?
Yeah, so is there any kind of something in the books? That's quite a bit of money. Not, you've done it with you, but only that over the years, like there was money donated, and is there nothing on paper?
Well,
Something?
whatever the rec center had, I believe, was given to Sandra, and Sandra kind of deciphered some of it, and then Brenna came on board and pitched in, and now it's kind of been handed over to Brenna.
Yeah,
But
so,
as far as the details from ESRA, I don't know what there is, or how good it was.
Well, that's not very good for public.
we just know we have to get it done. No
And
finger pointing anymore, yeah.
We
It's
can
done,
talk-
over,
yeah.
we can keep talking about it.
That's right.
And that plaque sees, if that plaque gets done, you get a lot of people who get
Yes,
right away,
yeah.
immediately done.
But I believe our residents, we have to give, well, like, we're giving them their brick, that's, so there's
Or
just
they
work.
take the brick home.
No, we're gonna make something over there, Dave. Well, let's,
It
Yeah.
might be a wall, like that's what they had talked about at one time, was a wall that has everybody's brick in there with the name on it. Like I know I bought one, I think in memory of my grandparents.
what we'd like to do also is, we'd like to phone everybody, because there's some people there that had how many names on, there's some people that maybe would like it to say in memory now. We're just gonna phone everybody, and that way we give them an update, so if, like, you know, us on the group there take so many names, we take 10 names each.
Well, the Bombers have that for, like, if you're a Bomber fan or whatever, or been there for so many years or whatever, and all our names are on their sidewalk
Yes,
in the bricks there.
same thing like Winnipeg Beach has
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
But it's something that Brenna also has suggested to them, that we start something, and then it could be a continuous fundraiser for them too, because there's some people that are on the committee now that would say, hey, I would donate to one. Well, it's not gonna be at the price, you know, we're gonna have to reevaluate that, but it's something that they can do as a fundraiser too.
Build a wall.
So, yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
Getting back to what Councilor Summit brought up, like it seems to me like it needs to be completed, so forge ahead.
Yeah.
But I think at the end, in looking at the books and then what you're doing now, there should be some kind of an accountability of what happened. Because, you know, you're estimating it was 180,000, but then fencing went in. Well, how much was the fencing, right?
Yeah.
So if you had all of the
Like there's other
revenue
expenses.
and
there,
all
yeah.
of the expenses
Yeah.
there, at least people then would know what went on.
Yes,
And I think that's important.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Okay, what else you got there?
Okay,
Sarah?
and I also attended AMM, the spring session, and that was 14th, 15th, and 16th. Some of the sessions I thought were, okay, I don't want to sound bad, but I wasn't impressed. Like, I guess just with it being, it's hard with virtual.
Sorry.
You know what, some of them were really good.
Yeah.
The very first speaker that came on board, he was so enthusiastic, and we got on a little bit late because we were at a Red River planning meeting. But some of the other ones, I guess I found them more, it's almost, it was more local
Yeah.
going on all the time. The other one was Nicole. Everything related to our code of conduct,
Right.
whether it was cyberbullying, just the way of behaving, respect. But anyways, CAO reviews, I found that one actually quite good. And I don't know if we're gonna get the tools, because they said they were available. I don't know if they were gonna make them available to us, but the review here was actually good. Oh, was it a cost? Oh, of course. Okay, anyways. My next one, I had it written. My next one was April 20th, was budget meeting. April 21st, we had Red River Planning meeting, and the mayor already stated earlier in the March, they had their 30% increase in permits issued to date. Permits are up by 70% in single-family dwellings, 80% issuing over 40 more home permits in the first 3 months than the last year. So like Derek said, they're very busy. It just throws me off of where are they getting the, because there's a shortage of construction material, yeah. And
Well, I don't know, are some of these bigger builders bringing stuff in from the States?
Or they have like, with Star Building, maybe they have just an agreement that they'll
Yeah.
need, but
Yeah.
And you make a good point on the US, because I know we've phoned to the US, and there's no shortage down, say at Menards, and they'll bring it across the border for you.
No shortage.
No shortage.
because they're getting all our good stuff.
Yeah, that's probably it, and it's probably cheaper.
Well, we send it to them, and then
They send it
we
back.
sell it to
yeah.
them for nothing, and then they sell it back to us.
April 22nd was the Interlake AGM. I was very impressed by the people invited there. Minister Eichler, Travel Manitoba, James Bazan, Minister Johnson, Elage Modier. Like, they seem to have all the high level. I thought, okay, well, we don't get this with Red River North, even though that's more of our local, but yeah, and I looked at the membership, and I know we were talking about, like, and I have no problem in, if we're trying to budget and everything, but we pay $150 to them a year, so.
Well, where did
And
the
we get one seat on their board.
On their board, right. The 5,000 is for Red River North, that are doing stuff more local for us there. They do have somebody on there, on the board, Red River North does, and I thought that person, and I'm gonna talk to them about it if they're gonna stay on, but like right now, from what I understand, they are coming off next year when they switch the board. One thing that they were gonna try and make a change is the elected officials, they are tired of them coming, because not everybody shows up at the meetings.
Right.
And they are tired of every time going over the budget with them, explaining everything.
Every meeting, every time I go on there, it's the same thing. Every meeting, they cry and whine about that. It's just sickening,
Yeah,
They,
so,
they say they don't want any counselors on there. And then they always complain about, they were making reference to if they should report to the municipalities if somebody didn't show up or whatever, you know what I mean?
well, they even spoke about dividing it up in districts and not having everybody from the RMs. But I said, that's fine, as long as that person's coming back and reporting to our RM, so we're getting the information. Or, the other thing they've spoken about is having a different, when it's a different meeting time, that they aren't coming to the executive committee. So, and I'm fine with that too, that if it's like, say, if you meet 4 times a year instead. So, other than that, oh, and yesterday had executive committee meeting for Red River Planning, and they're, actually, one of the things that I really like that was brought up there, we're doing evaluations right now, and I did bring up to the chair of the executive committee that just that I'm new on the Red River Planning Board, and I thought would probably be better, I was thinking in my mind, probably be better for Rob to do the evaluation, but they did say I could do it with our mayor.
Yeah.
And, or if any counselors have any problem, like any issues or anything that we can discuss it in council too. So, because I thought right now, I've only been on there for the 3 months, and that was my point, that you might have some of the new members that might give them a total 1s and 2s, and I could be giving them 8s, 9s, and 10s, like, that from what I've seen in the past 3 months, so.
Yeah, and I didn't want to mention it yesterday, but I think the last time we did one, Rob and I actually each did one, and then we kind of put them together and
Okay.
had it in one paper, so like one evaluation. So, if you have a 6 and I have an 8, well, we put it as a 7, and that's how it would go forward, so.
Sounds good, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just didn't feel comfortable, and I know there's some other new members on
Yes.
there, and I thought, is that fair in one way that,
Yeah, well, we'll have to figure out a day when we're here and we have an extra little bit of time, we can maybe just sit down and do it here.
and that's everything.
Okay, thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
Just 3 things. April 13th, our daytime planning meeting. April 15th, Selkirk Biz. We short meeting, talked about some of their programs that they're running, the BizBucks. They talked about the state of the region and how they were going to be getting questions put together, and hence they are now here for us. And April 20th, our budget, and that is it.
Okay, thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
I attended the AMM convention on April the 14th to 16th. I attended all of the 1-hour sessions. The first one was Leaders Don't Arrive, and I agree with Councillor Strang, a very good speaker. He was full of pop. Very interesting. It was kind of more of, here's the things you should be thinking about. So a lot of that was like, you know, the old style of leadership where basically the new style deals more with having trust and caring about staff and communicating. The old style was more like you didn't trust the staff, right? So that move over to leadership is happening. Very good speaker, lots of notes. Then we had Al Moody from Manitoba Infrastructure, and they do have a working group with AMM and 3 MI staff, so if we have any problems with Manitoba Infrastructure in our municipality, we can go right to AMM and they will also work on our behalf with them. So I thought about a few of the issues that we've been asking about, like, you know, the corner of 44 and Henderson, for example. So they're also looking at redoing the gravel road agreements. I don't know, I don't think we have any.
We don't have any that I'm aware of.
And they're also looking at the noxious weed control. If you remember last year, that whole business kind of got messed up. Okay, so that looks like they're going to go back to the weed districts now. So I don't know if you've heard anything about that on your end, but
We have a meeting
yeah.
in 2 weeks.
So that's good news, I think, for the weed district. Online reputation management was next, and very interesting. I'm not a big online presence, but you know, it was talking about things that you should do in comparison to things you shouldn't do. Poor Ted Cruz got hammered pretty hard again. You know, and the basic mistakes of what he made, what he did was, you know, he didn't take responsibility for his decision. You know, he didn't.
Poor Ted Cruz, I wouldn't say poor Ted Cruz.
He didn't.
Friggin' wacko.
He didn't, you know, apologize for anything he did. So, you know, those are kind of some of the things. And timing is very important. Like if something's blowing up, you've got to deal with it. The longer you leave it, the worse it is. Policing costs. So they're doing a funding review. And part of this is because of resolutions that's been made to AMM about looking at the funding. As you know, or may not know, there are certain municipalities that pay for policing right now through the RCMP or contract with the province. And then municipalities really don't, RMs. So I think it's something that we're going to need to think about, because I'm guessing that there's going to be another line expense item coming. I did try and put a question through, but they never got to it, and was, if you're gonna redistribute the costs to everyone, then, okay, the people who were paying for policing typically got a grant from the province. So if we're redistributing the cost, we should be taking a look at redistributing those grants too. Part of what they were talking about was that it's all out of whack too. Like, I remember when I worked in Neepawa used to pay a significant amount for policing.
The town.
Yeah, the town. But essentially the grant covered the cost. Like, this is the general grant that you get from the province. So their general grant from the province would be much larger per capita than what we get. But the idea behind it was to cover that policing cost. So, but apparently there's some municipalities that it's not even really coming close. Their bill is much more than what they're getting back in revenue.
Scott, can I just ask you a question there? I was always of the understanding that rural municipalities didn't pay policing costs to the RCMP. It was
Well-
more the towns and cities.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. They're talking about everyone paying.
I thought we paid.
To the RCMP?
Just only pays the student or something, somewhere over.
Well, we
Yeah,
were
we
paying
have-
for a secretary, but I don't even think we're paying that anymore, are we?
We
Pat?
haven't been
No.
going for last year.
So anyways, that's maybe not the greatest of news. The other side of it, I guess, though, is it's that old principle that is if you want to say you got to pay, so then if we're paying, then maybe we're going to have more influence on how policing is done in our municipality.
No, you are not allowed to give police direction.
Well, no, but they come and ask us, what do you want us to focus on, right? That happens here, because they ask for meetings, right? You guys have gone
To
to.
have discussions, but not to get direction.
No,
Yeah, we have to be careful on that one. But they are moving more towards citizen boards for managing police, so.
that's true. Performance assessments for the CAO. Two types of assessment is one-dimensional and 360. You know, they went through a lot of you know, the positives and negatives of both. Setting up goals, those types of things. So I think we're going to be discussing this in the near future.
Yes, we will be, and I've got some questions kind of in my mind already, so.
And I might have some assistance for council if you choose to use it from my previous lifetime.
His wisdom.
But there's some choices to be made there on how we're going to move forward, and you know, I think part of it should be the comfort level of not only us but also our CAO. Cyber liability issues, we are covered under our existing insurance for cyber. If we get ransomware or something like that, but it's a costly endeavor. We, I don't know if you got a chance to sit in on this one. It's something that we should probably be taking a look at. It's been happening to municipalities. It's actually even more happening to healthcare sector. I think 20% of them are happening in Southern healthcare now. So it's something that we should look at. I have more notes if you're interested. Green plan. A lot of this we've heard of before. Efficiency Manitoba is now the new Crown Corporation. There's in budget 2021, there's $1 million put in for projects. So the pillars are climate, jobs, water, and nature. So in 2019, greenhouse gas emissions in this province, buildings were 18%, transportation was 40%, ag is 29%. So they want to they want to increase the use of renewable fuels. Talked about the federal policy that we all know about. There's going to be some tax credits coming for geothermal. There's a few websites for information, climateatlas.ca, prairiesrac.com, and climatewest.ca. There's supposed to be some training coming. So there will be an energy strategy. And then more efficiency Manitoba programming, green transportation strategy, and climate west adaptation is supposed to help. And of course, it's on the website, Manitoba Green Plan, Manitoba Climate Green Plan.ca.
Did they talk about any new fuels, Scott?
They're talking about
Blue gas, did they mention anything about blue gas?
not that, but they were talking about increasing, like right now, you get gas that might have, they say 10% ethanol,
Yeah.
but it's really about 8.5. They want to increase that. And also another type of, similar to ethanol they want to use. Now, there were a bunch of questions at the end about, okay, are you going to fix everybody's blown motors? Because it burns hotter, right?
Yeah, well, it won't burn in the winter.
Yeah. So there's challenges, right? And a lot of the questions were good, like it'll probably make them think about how they're going to incorporate this stuff. But, it was all kind of more wait and see, it's coming, unless anybody else attended, got more out of it. I know Councillor Sutherland attended that one too. But, the only other thing I attended was April 20th budget discussions. That's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor Bazarovich.
Mine's pretty short. Mine's same as Dave's actually, just AMM sessions and budget meeting. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Horvis.
April 20th, the financial planning meeting. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I have a few here, and I'm totally going to ignore the ones that you guys have already spoken about. I'm not even going to go there. On April the 13th, Deepak and I had the Mayors, Reeves, and CAO meetings. We had greetings from Derek Johnson, the Honorable Minister, and he brought greetings on behalf of the province and spoke on public health pressures with COVID-19 and support the provinces providing municipalities through funding. Then there was the report from the executive director. He advised that there could be elections at the June district meetings. Anyone who wants to be nominated, and they have to receive the nominations by June the 2nd. There will be no resolutions at the new district meetings. They will be virtual, but there will be no resolutions. If we do have any resolutions that will be put forward, they are going to be heard at the November conference. And I would imagine at this point in time, that's also going to be virtual. It will not be. Then the president and both vice presidents gave their reports on a number of matters. And all their reports actually are on the AMM website. There is a section about, I think it's called publications or something, and all that information that was at all these meetings is on there. I did check that last night. Some highlights for the municipalities were that, of course, we know this one, we'll be receiving more on the operating grant, and the gas tax has been doubled. They also said that in some areas it may take up to 5 years for recovery from the pandemic. And a presentation was then given on shared health. Closing remarks were given by President Blight, and that was kind of the end of that one. On April 21st, I was asked to attend the ledge virtually, and I wasn't quite sure why. But it was our member's statement, and I'm just gonna, it's only a couple of minutes, and I'm gonna play it if you guys can hear it. Hopefully you'll be able to. I thought it was kind of neat, but no. Can you put this on the,
Is it working?
yes, Ward. We'll see if we can get it on the speaker after, so I'm just gonna let it play because it's not so near loud enough. But it was, anyways, what I've put here is that he gave us a shout out in the legislature advising that we are one of the fastest growing municipalities in the province, and that we are the place to go for recreation.
I can play it.
What's that?
I can play for you.
Oh, perfect.
Thursday, 8:03 p.m. Definitely.
Is that it?
No?
No, that's not it. I'm trying to find that email that you sent me.
We made a costume votes.
I thought it was, I thought I sent it via
Text?
text.
Oh, okay. Then mine won't be much louder than yours, but let me try.
Okay. So then he went on
Yeah.
to, go ahead.
Services. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise in the House today to bring awareness to the community profile of the RM of St. Clements. The rural municipality of St. Clements is one of the fastest growing municipalities in Manitoba. The municipality's western boundary runs along the Red River in Lake Winnipeg from south of Lockwood, then northward to Grand Beach Provincial Park. Eastward, the boundary sites adjacent to the municipalities of Alexander, Lac du Bonny, Broken Head, and Springfield. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the trend is in the RM of St. Clements is diverse, from rolling plains to rich forest and marshland to pristine beaches. The municipality is home to an ecological preserve and provincial parks, both rich and beautiful, with varied landscapes. Also housed within
Not sure what happened there.
the Red River in Lake Winnipeg from south of Lockwood, then northward to Grand Beach.
You used to see my face.
Eastward, the boundary sites adjacent to the municipalities of Alexander, Lac du Bonny, Broken Head, and Springfield. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the terrain is in the RM of St. Clements is diverse, from rolling plains to rich forest and marshland to pristine beaches. The municipality is home to an ecological preserve and provincial parks, both rich and beautiful, with varied landscapes. Also housed within the RM are the communities of East Selkirk, Grand Marais, Nebo, and Lockport. Mr. Deputy Speaker, known for its many parks and beaches and beach communities, the RM of St. Clements is the place to go for relaxation.
Bet he never had a written speech.
I hate to tell you he did.
Its many parks, both fishing, hunting,
I guess I was a bit taken aback because I had no clue why he wanted me to join virtually, and, you know, a lot of things ran through my mind, so I thought this was really nice that he gave us a shout out that we're kind of a good place to be in these COVID times, so.
Send us the money.
Did they call you for a speech?
No, no. And the only other one I have that wasn't mentioned yet was we had a John Q meeting again last week, and there was some more updates on the fiber project. RF now is still moving in a positive direction, but there are a number of things that need to be considered. So we do have a small working group. I am not on there. They're going to be working with RF now on some options of how to move forward, and they're going to come back for a recommendation at our next meeting. Also, a short discussion on servicing of hard-to-reach areas, like our Grand Marais, and we know that some people up there already have the Starlink, and that could be the answer for some of the areas that are hard to reach by other means, so. And I believe that that is all I have. Yes, it is. Go ahead, Deepak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Update, capital borrowing status review. The borrowing bylaws 8 and 9 for 2021 for our infrastructure priorities have been approved, and the debenture started, and now we're just waiting for the projects to go out for tender. For the grant applications, we made the application for the Manitoba Water Services Board, and as you know, we just made a resolution today. We're seeking for them to match our grants for the sewer as well as for the water and the water line, that is. And then the design of the water softener project is going out to tender with the Manitoba Water Services Board and WSB helping to deliver on that project. There might be some price escalation, and I've given you a bit of a heads up on it in the past, that we may have to deal with that. We continue to wait for the notice of the ISIP funding, and we know the provinces submit the names. The RN offices are open to the public. Open to the public policy is being reviewed, and as I've had some discussions with you, and further restrictions from the public health orders may dictate us having to close our doors again to the public in order to protect the safety of our staff and the public. Project status updates. The Guns Creek diversion is continuing on. There have been some just more recent emails as of today for some of those updates, and I can provide that next time for you. We are proceeding with the project and trying to keep it within the budget that the province gave us. St. Clement's Quarry engagement, the communication has been sent out. There's been some reaction already, and then we're just looking at setting up a meeting with our consultant to see what that reaction was. They've contacted the consultant directly. Nothing has come to me directly yet. And then the letter that I shared with you is said to contact the CIO. And so we'll see as we move forward. Ludwig construction project is, I think it's gone out to tender or detailed design. We should have some answers on that soon. As to the general meetings, I've had the WMR Plan 2050 meeting, mayor and CAO's meeting with AMF that the mayor just talked about, webinar with AMF that many of you talked about, AMF Easter Municipal Visit was the meeting, as well as the Scapa Miller Murray on various projects, and then the Manitoba Water Services Board and WSB on the water treatment plant, Bill 37 working group meetings, regular meetings with RRPD, Lockport Condo Corporation and met with their board representatives, as well as various budget meetings with council and business operations. And that's the shortest part of my presentation today.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Administrator. Heather, do you have anything that you would like to share with us today?
No, I've got nothing today.
Okay, so we are at that point in the meeting where we can have our supper break. So I will ask that Heather please stop the recording, and as soon as I get a thumbs up, then we will have our break.